Hello, this is Gordon Brooks, and I'm here to interview Scott Lewis II.
My name is Scott Lewis II. I am the president of Jamestown Community College's game club, and I am a on and off again gamer with some knowledge of the game industry.
Could you give us a little bit more information about the big names in gaming in the industry?
Right now, that would be Activision. Activision is responsible for Call of Duty, and Call of Duty is, I think, still the biggest thing ever right now. There's also Electronic Arts. They're responsible for the Battlefield series, which has had a resurgence with Battlefield 1. There's also Naughty Dog. Naughty Dog is extremely popular for its Uncharted series and its ongoing Last of Us series.
What kind of genres would you say those games are?
All of them are action. That Call of Duty is a first-person military shooter. What game it is, it's either sci-fi as well or military conspiracy geopolitical sort of stuff. The next one was EA. Battlefield is a lot the same, except it doesn't go into the future like Call of Duty does. The most recent game went all the way back to World War I. And then the Uncharted games, that is an adventure-based, sort of Indiana Jones treasure hunter game. While The Last of Us is a survival horror zombie game with really strong story elements, I hear.
I've noticed that there's been a resurgence in the indie market, being independent developers, people who create video games out of their garages, and there's a markup for that. Is there any notable companies that are part of these indie companies?
Now, indie companies don't have as big names as AAA. There are notable titles, but most people don't know the people behind them. On an individual basis, I know of Phil Fish, I think his name is, who was behind the video game Fez. Then there's That Game Company, the artsy people who make games like Journey and Flower and Flow. And I think That People Can Fly is still around. I think they're still trying to do those old school sort of first-person shooter games.
Now that's the name of the company, The People Who Can Fly?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, they were responsible for the Damnation, something like that. Older game from the 2000s, like 2003. Really not that popular in its time, strong cult following. And then they got eaten up by Epic Games to work on stuff like Bulletstorm.
Would you say that these smaller companies getting eaten up by these big companies acquired through purchasing is a common occurrence?
Small, really small companies, not too much. They might pair with publishers like Microsoft or Sony, but it's more the medium-sized companies that get eaten up. Stuff like Bullfrog or Raven Software, I think.
What notable titles have they made?
Raven Software, I think they were responsible for the Hexen and Heretic series, which was a fantasy-themed Doom clone FPS game series.
And now you say FPS, that stands for first-person shooter?
Yep.
It's sort of like the Call of Duty games that you were describing earlier.
Yes, but with a significantly different sort of design, where Call of Duty is more cover-based or generating health military-themed. Those old-school sort of games are a lot faster, more run-and-gun sort of thing.
Run and gun, where you move quickly through the level, and it's like how fast you can go.
Yeah.
How do independent developers create and sell their games?
The vast majority of them rely on crowdfunding efforts. Stuff like Kickstarter, which is really popular, but also stuff like GoFundMe and maybe Patreon for that. YouTube crowdfunding efforts like Kickstarter. And sometimes they might pair up with a larger publisher. I think that's what happened with No Man's Sky, which was a space exploration game that got picked up by a really big studio who provided a lot of backing for the production and distribution of the game, even though the game started as a Kickstarter campaign.
So would I be incorrect in saying that there's a form of ethics of what is a game developer that has to be upheld to a standard?
I would hope so. Try their best to defend some of the less appeasable aspects of the video game business.
How has video games started to branch out from what we typically think of video games into the other forms of media?
Well, that's mostly with movies, and that's been going on for a while. A lot of companies have tried to make video game movies. I hear the fans like, at least. I don't know how well received it's been among non-fans.
Thank you for talking with us today. Greatly appreciate it, Scott.
Thank you, Gordon. This has been an enjoyable interview.